Well, hi everyone. We have a wonderful panel of guests for you today, and we're going to be talking about a variety of different kinds of things that keep you well. So what I wanted to do first is just to introduce you so you have an idea of who we have here on our panel. To my immediate right is Jennifer DeMeo, who's an acupuncturist. In the middle is Dr. Andrew McLennan, and he's a chiropractor. And to his right is Chantal Baptiste, and she is a holistic nutrition coach and personal trainer. So we have lots of questions to get answered, and hopefully if you have any questions when you are done watching this show, you can either go to our online version with Channel 18 with streaming, or you can ask us for a DVD, or you can give me a call if you have any specific questions about anything that you've seen with these folks here today, because we're going to cover a lot of ground. So I guess we'll start with what makes the wellness center that you all work at different from others. We have a few on the Cape, and if people were to come, what would they see perhaps that's different?
Well, when I started the center, I was looking to combine different wellness therapies that I had experienced. So I had experienced acupuncture and had great results. I had experienced nutritional things and had great results, massage therapy. And so I thought it would be great to have everybody in one place instead of referring them out to the other practitioners. And one of the things that I noticed touring around to the different centers was they may have been in all one spot, but they weren't working together. So they weren't cross-referring. They weren't doing monthly meetings, interacting with each other, asking about each other's clients and the clients that they were cross-referring, and developing educational classes together, or having individual educational classes that represented the work that they did. And so we're collaborating more. And
Not
I think
operating in your own silos, which happens in some places.
Because all the therapies work independently well, or I should say care providers independently work well, and they work very powerfully collectively. But not someone can come into our center and they can just go to Jennifer for acupuncture or chiropractic, or get holistic nutritional counseling with Chantal, or get a massage, or they can use all of us or two of us. So that's really the difference that I saw looking at the other wellness centers that had those components in it.
So I know from here, because I work with seniors a lot, obviously, in my job, and one of the programs that I teach is a balance class, and we talk a lot about nutrition in the balance class, because obviously one thing affects another, and if you operate in those silos by themselves, you're missing a potential great deal of trying to keep that whole person whole. So if in your practice, how might you have, like, could you walk us through maybe a client, how would they benefit from going to all of you?
Right, I give you an example. If I have a client and they're interested in losing weight, or if they have a lot of food sensitivities, I would refer them to Chantal. And Chantal can talk a little bit about how she would work with those individuals.
Yeah, I mean, what I've noticed is that foods that are good for weight loss are good for a lot of other things too. Getting rid of sugars and inflammatory foods would affect someone who's struggling with an inflammatory condition, would help someone who has cancer, would help someone who needs to lose weight, would help on a lot of different things. So whenever someone's incorporating those things, it's going to help them to get chiropractic or acupuncture or massage. So especially in the spring when we do a lot of detoxes and spring cleanses, it's really good for your body to do that a couple times a year. I generally do it in the spring and the fall. And then I always send someone to see, well, really all of them. I recommend everything because it's really tough on your nervous system. It produces some stress in the body when people are going through a detox. So any kind of complementary care, any acupuncture or massage will help them with that. Just feel less symptomatic, will help them rest better and help the body repair better. So that's the most common thing, especially this time of the year.
Yeah, and when individuals come to me, I mean, most people come to a chiropractor for neck and low back pain. But what they don't understand is that chiropractors are really looking for stresses along their nervous system, our brain, our spinal cord, and the nerves that come out and innervate our neuromusculoskeletal system, our organs, and we try to get that system functioning well. Well, if they have nutritional imbalances, that system isn't going to function as well. If I adjust someone and they are nutritionally off, they're going to reintroduce that stress into their body. And with acupuncture, because of how it works, and Jennifer can talk a little bit of this, it can help that nervous system integrate a little bit. So I would even refer to Jennifer for acupuncture for those individuals that I think would need it.
And wouldn't it, in the long run, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't it make the treatment, if we were to call it that, by all of you, last longer? I mean,
Yes.
if I came to you, Dr. McLennan, and I have scoliosis and I have my neck adjusted, but I've still got stressors at work. It's town meeting and budget time and so on, and all of those lovely things are making me stressed out. If I just go to you and I don't have massage, say, or acupuncture, or talk about nutrition and how is that affecting the stress or sleep, then I might be coming to you more frequently than perhaps if I had used the other complementary medicines. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, it does. And I'll give you an example of myself and why I, for example, employed acupuncture. I saw an acupuncturist. My first introduction to acupuncture is I had like walking pneumonia. My sinuses were clogged. I was fighting a chest cold, and I was looking at wellness centers. And I met an acupuncturist, and I told him my issues. He threw needles in my sinuses. Immediately, my sinuses opened up when they were clogged for over 5 weeks. And I had low energy and fatigue. And later that day, after he'd done needles in my chest, I had more energy. But I primarily went, and Jennifer can speak to this, for anxiety. It's stress. So do you want to talk a little bit about stress and how acupuncture helps with that?
Yeah, I really, a lot of people come to acupuncture for pain, but honestly, it's wonderful for just calming the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. It's very relaxing, and it helps. And like you were saying, you don't ever get rid of stress. You're never going to just go and live in a bubble and not go to work, and that doesn't happen. So it helps you function better under stress. It helps you deal better with stress. It helps the body process it better. Just lowering the firing of the nervous system constantly. It helps sleep. And so if one can sleep, they're functioning better. They're healthier. So to really, we can't ever really downplay the importance of stress, and that's not to say we're ever going to get rid of it. I mean, let's not. Our lives are our lives, and there's always going to be either familiar or financial or work-related stresses. But how do we function under stress? How are we handling stress? How is our mood, our mental and emotional well-being? As the stresses come at us, and as if we can work better under that, with acupuncture and chiropractic, and, just eating better or exercising is huge, just, because sometimes, let's face it, if we're traveling or something, or the holidays, we're going to eat different foods, but if we're exercising or doing something that, we are just happier, our well-being is just, it's just a greater...
You manage stress basically better.
You manage stress better. You just function better, and and overall you're just living a healthier life.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is that medicine has stated that 80% of all diseases caused by stress. What are those stressors? Physical, emotional, and chemical stresses, meaning environmental, what we're putting into our body, what we're inhaling in our lungs, and what we're exposing ourselves to. And these types of therapies, whether it's nutritional, exercise, acupuncture, or chiropractic, help decrease the cortisol levels in your body through the fight or flight adrenal stress that we encounter every day through physical, emotional, and chemical stresses. And so they're great, inexpensive management tools to manage person's health, to keep them well, so that they don't have to go to the doctor for some, future disease. Or acute emergency care. It's great that we have it, but it's avoidable, and it's very cost effective.
Well, I tell people, one of the things that we work with, one of the groups of people that we work with a lot are caregivers. And caregivers with the lovely free-ranging hormone cortisol going on in our body, your stress level goes, to here, and then if you don't do anything, unlike your blood pressure, to bring that level back down again, it stays there. And then the next time your stressor comes, it goes up again from there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that often caregivers, I think it's 64% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for. So we recommend at a bare minimum massage to people all the time. But I'm thinking that another avenue that people probably wouldn't think of for caregivers is acupuncture, just to help with the stress level and make them aware of, that same package. What you're putting in your mouth needs to also be viewed as medicine.
Yeah.
Right.
And how you're eating and when you're eating and the quantity you're eating and so on. But I think caregivers are one of the most difficult populations to work with, simply because they are so entrenched in what they're doing that the last person they want to take care of, or can sometimes, is themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure we can speak to all that, because we've probably seen a lot of caregivers and the stress they've been under, and how it is very difficult for them to take care of themselves. And I'm sure you guys have told them, look, if you don't care for yourself, you're no good to being able to take care of that individual.
Are there different kinds of acupuncture?
Yes, there's a Chinese style, Japanese style, a 5-element style, and so those are different styles of acupuncture. Acupuncture actually falls under the umbrella of traditional Chinese medicine, and traditional Chinese medicine also includes herbs. It includes Tui Na, which is a type of massage, and then there's other forms of therapy as far as acupressure, what's called moxibustion, which is a heating of the points rather than using a needle in the points. And then there's cupping, which again is more heat to stimulate the body, also a way of kind of drawing out toxins. So traditional Chinese medicine really encompasses a lot, and acupuncture is just really one facet. And then there's different styles of acupuncture.
And what do you provide at
I trained under Chinese style. I was trained as far as traditional Chinese medicine. I was trained with a Chinese style, and I also took a year of herbs. I did a little bit of a Japanese course, very little 5-element, and a little bit of shiatsu as well. So.
And the interesting thing about Jennifer, actually a chiropractor referred her to me, and we met. In her past life, she was a chiropractor. And she went to chiropractic school, finished, she practiced for several years, and then really found her passion in acupuncture. And I've seen a fair number of acupuncturists, and she's got a very gentle touch. She works very well with the elderly, and she also does some craniosacral therapy too.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because the biggest thing people are afraid of when you mention anything to do with acupuncture, the two questions I get are, does it hurt?
Yeah.
Is one, and how do I pay for it? Because one of the difficulties with some of the complementary medicines is that Medicare doesn't cover it, or health insurance itself doesn't cover it. And what I say to people is, when it's a hard transition mentally, but when you go to your primary care or your cardiologist or any of your specialty doctors, most of the time, I don't know of anyone who doesn't have a copay of some kind. If, depending on how great your insurance is, it might be your secondary insurance covers that. But for the most part, when people go to a doctor, they're paying something. And so I say to them, if you took that something and multiplied it times 4 for the amount of times that you're probably going to go to the primary on the very issue that you're talking about, that amount is probably what you would spend in one visit, and potentially have a very large chunk of understanding better what's wrong with you, and perhaps maybe not having to go back, or maybe only having to go back once. But changing or turning that mindset's a little bit different, because it's more money out of pocket all at once, and unless you do it, it's getting them there that's the hardest part. Usually once you get there, you guys sort of take care of it.
It's interesting about the culture that has happened, I'd say started in the 80s and moved through, was the fact that, HMOs and PPOs came out and they eventually integrated, some of them do cover acupuncture, they cover chiropractic, and they might cover some nutritional aspects. But people jumped on the bandwagon, and really what health insurance is about is major medical disease care,
Right.
and they do that very well. But when it comes to these type of services that we provide, I really like to look at it as a better health care policy. It's not that expensive, like you said. When you add it all up and you figure out your premiums, your co-pays, you're saving money. And what really you're doing is you're amassing health in your body so you don't have to go down those critical lines of care in terms of the disease realm, which you really want to avoid. And even people with chronic care it helps with. It helps them manage and improves the quality of their lives.
So Chantel, what is it exactly that you do? How do you describe, I guess, holistic nutritional counseling?
So the major difference between what I'm doing and what you would see at a nutritionist or a dietitian is that when you go to see them, it's mostly eat this much protein, this much fat, this much carbohydrate. And the approach that I have is looking at how the rest of your life will play into what you're eating. So if someone's stressed out, they sometimes manage that with food. Mm-hmm. If someone's really busy, they're eating on the run, and there could be not such great choices there. If someone's upset about something, they could eat. If someone's angry about something, they could eat a lot of bad stuff or maybe not eat anything at all. If someone's working out a lot, they're going to, make different choices then. So we really we sit down and we look at their life and what kind of eating patterns do they have based on what they're doing day to day, and then try to just make better choices from there. So I've had some people that come to me and they're living on Burger King and Taco Bell, some things like that. Like, okay, well, how can you, if you're going to do that anyway, how can you make a better choice when you're there? Mm-hmm. So it's not completely overwhelming someone like, you can never have that again. Now you're going to eat. Mm-hmm. Now it's going to be Special K and Raisin Bran for breakfast right. with 2% milk or whatever. It's teaching them how to make gradual steps, so it's something like, oh, I can do this, and then gradually improving step by step, meeting to meeting on what they were doing before. So it just makes it a little bit more accessible, I think. And we're also focusing more on whole foods. So it's not just calories in, calories out. It's how do you get a better quality for what you want, and just focusing on as back to basics as possible. So again, so it's not super overwhelming. Oh well, if it's in a box, let's try not to have it. If it came from the ground, let's focus more on that. And it's just really, really simple steps versus following a complicated meal plan with stuff that they don't like on it. So
one of the conditions that I've had myself, and I know that all of you probably have dealt with at some point or another, is in working with people who have inflammatory conditions or diseases. Mm-hmm. Mine happen to be really rare, eosinophilic fasciitis, but what a lot of people are dealing with is the arthritis family, the rheumatoid arthritis, yeah. Mm-hmm. regular arthritis, and degenerative joint kinds of diseases. How do you all differently deal with those types of conditions?
Well, so acupuncture really helps decrease the inflammatory process. Again, it calms the nervous system, and it, again, could either help with sleep. So in a way, you're going to help somebody. If you help their sleep, you're helping them manage their pain better, because they'll probably be out of more pain because they're going to have more energy throughout the day. If you're helping the inflammatory process just calm down, because the inflammation is actually... There's a good amount of inflammation, and then it gets too wild, and that's when you want to start calming it. There's actually some need for inflammation, and it's when it gets out of hand is when you need to really focus on that. There's also different food choices I would recommend as far as either supplements, herbs, or just foods they can eat. And we would just, focus on the different patterns somebody comes in with, and as far as their treatment, what points I would use. So you would really help, again, the stress, you would help the sleep, and you would help just calm. In Chinese medicine, we view inflammation as a type of heat, so you're trying to cool the body down, increase what we would call increased yin, and through that aspect, we would be calming the inflammatory process.
Yeah, and I mean, chiropractically, when you're dealing with inflammation, it's almost like an autoimmune response, an over-autoimmune response. That's what they're coming into relative to the science. Because like Jennifer said, some inflammation is good. That's your body healing itself. But when it gets out of whack and it's getting out of balance, that's when it becomes a problem with the arthritis, degenerative joint disease, rheumatoid arthritis. And what the chiropractic does is they found that through the nervous system and the neuroautoimmune response, it helps calm that system down. And again, if you're talking about degenerative joint disease, if you get that joint to function better, you get it to move better, you get increased blood flow, you get toxins out from the lymphatics, because everything's in balance and moving between the tissue, and that generally helps decrease pain. And then, like acupuncture does in chiropractic, it helps decrease the sympathetics to get in balance with the parasympathetics. So your immune system's in more balance and your body's in more balance. So you're not feeling the pain, so you don't gather more stress. You're more relaxed, so it improves the quality of your life. And Chantal,
are there anti-inflammatory foods?
Yeah, what I would do first and foremost if someone has an inflammatory disease is help them get off the bad stuff. Like all the sugars and the processed things. Those are going to increase inflammation. So we show them healthier ways to eat so that they can naturally decrease that. There's also ratios of protein to fat to carbohydrate that would decrease inflammation. So that's a more chronic thing that we would definitely work on ratios and being careful. But the detox thing is big. So I would show them foods that they can use to naturally help them get rid of any toxins that are in the body. Teach them how to not eat so much inflammatory things. And then, yes, there are foods that would help with that. So things like omega-3s, lots of herbs, turmeric. I tell them put turmeric on everything. Like just have chicken, have curry every night, The turmeric is big, cinnamon, basil, any fish really is good. So just... I never like to say, never have this, this, and this, but I'm like, just have a lot of this. And then hopefully when they're having a lot of this, they don't have space in their stomach for all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that we attack it, because they're already kind of overwhelmed with the fact that now they've been diagnosed with this disease. And so it's like, okay, well, let's just include more of this and don't worry about the fact that you're not really having that. And sometimes they don't even think about the stuff that they're not having because they're so busy with adding in other stuff.
You'll laugh. My family is Welsh and Irish, and the Welsh half, my father used to always, every time they had any kind of a roast or a big meal on Sunday, the Monday was always curry of. So if it was
Yes.
chicken or if it was beef or whatever, it was always curry of beef or curry of chicken. So I grew up on curry my whole life, and then when I met my husband, he hates curry. So
I have that problem too.
It's quite funny, but it's very good for you. And I've tried to tell family and friends that it's especially turmeric is a wonderful thing to introduce to your system and keep there.
Oh, yeah.
So inflammatory is one, but now the other big condition you always, sadly, and I'm generalizing here, not to insult anyone out there, but we have lots of hips and knees, and of course the first thing everybody goes to is the joint guys, and then you start looking at replacements or arthroscopic and those kinds of things. And I'm thinking that there's probably more of a preventative tool or something that can be treated with you folks, at least first to try.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, I've seen clients with, one hip. I always tell people, why is it either the right or left? Why isn't it both sides? And it can be, but usually it dominates one side or another. And I had a guy come to me with hip problems, and he was looking at a hip replacement. And as I was working with him to help him with his hip, I got in his history that he had injured his knee and he'd never taken care of his knee. So that inflammation in his knee that was never taken care of eventually translated up in his hip. The symptoms were showing up in the hip. And chiropractically, what we try to do is restore balance in the neuromusculoskeletal system so that the joints are functioning well through how the nerves express themselves through the muscles. And then if that's happening, the joints will track properly. There'll be less inflammation and less pain. There are times where the joints are bad enough where you need a replacement. But even on the post end of a replacement, chiropractic can help. Both these therapies can help. I mean, nutrition can help with inflammation, and you can talk about how it's acupuncture's done really well with the extremities.
Yeah, it's unfortunately people do come to us as a last resort. So unfortunately you do see them when they're like, well, I'm going to have surgery in 3 weeks and I don't want to go. And you're like, oh, okay. So
you want to be cured in 3 weeks.
That's a fun one. But even then, even if they are going to have surgery, you really can help in so many levels because, and I was actually just talking to someone this weekend who he really worked on getting his body in great shape before surgery, and post-surgery he has been amazing. He was off the meds within a week. I mean, the amount of functioning he's already had after a complete replacement of a joint is amazing. So it's not to say that even if down the road you still need it to have the body, balanced and functioning better, and the sleep is better, you can really recover a lot faster. Also, you can, you don't need as much pain meds for as long, and that's huge. When you were talking about out-of-pocket expenses, I don't think people realize how much money they spend on
medicine.
Yeah.
For the rest of their life, and unfortunately they could be on a generic for a while, and then all of a sudden they're like on, it's like, oh, you can't have the generic form anymore, and now they're paying a lot of money, and then they're building a tolerance. So a lot of these therapies can really help you either lower the amount you're on, stay at a low dose, maybe even come off of the medicine. So you have to think as far as that financially, as far as when you're in surgery, post-surgery, and even before surgery. If I'm, if I'm in a lot of pain, I'm taking a lot of medicine. What is this doing to my liver, my stomach, my sleep, my digestion? And so then down the road, are you going to have either ulcers or, different, unfortunately,
or addictive behaviors? Because
exactly.
the other issue we get is our newer, 60s-year-olds are having replacements or arthroscopic things, and they're being given the pain management family of the OxyContins and oxycodones. And the doctor gave me 30 pills, Dr. McLennan, so I'm supposed to use all those 30, right? Well, they look at doctors as God, and if they are prescribing something, it should be said that you only need smaller amounts. But I guess my last question is, you have some wellness events that you do at your center also for the public, is that true?
Chantel does. If you want to talk about some of the classes you do.
Like I said earlier, in the spring and the fall, I do a lot of group cleanses. So a lot of people are interested in detox. It seems to be kind of a buzzword right now. So we do a week-long, sometimes 10-day group cleanse. So everyone will come in, we'll watch a movie about it. We weigh in. We set up private groups online and through email where people can connect with other people going through the cleanse. How are you feeling? What's going on? Or I feel awesome, or I have a headache, or whatever. Just help. I think the biggest thing is connecting someone who wants to get healthier with someone else who wants to get healthier.
Yeah, support group.
Because a lot of the time, you want to be healthy, and then you're trying to eat healthy, and you go home and your husband's eating pints of ice cream all night, and your kids are having pizza for dinner or whatever. So you want to build that core group of people trying to get healthier. So that's the main focus at the Wellness Center. So we'll do movies, we'll do talks. We did a raw food event last year where everyone, like a potluck, everyone brought in a raw food dish and we all sat around and ate it. And again, you're meeting other people that want to get healthy.
Yeah, we're really trying to create a community of educating people about wellness. And we do classes on movies that relate to health and spirituality. We do meditation. One of our acupuncturists does Tibetan meditation. We've done yoga. We've been really progressive, and we do, like I'm doing a class today on chiropractic. What is chiropractic? And it's open to the public. And generally, there's no fee. And so we're always trying to educate the public and let them know different ways of being well.
And I think that's basically the message of what we're trying to do here today, is to give you a little idea of what each of these integrative medicines are, and to be viewed as medicine and help for wellness for the whole body, and that you can pick one or all of the above, so that your body is being looked at as your entire being and not one little piece of it. And I think we tend to do that with our primary care, and not that they're not needed. They certainly are important as well and play a role, but perhaps if we can keep our whole being well, we'll have less visits to that primary person. So does anyone have any other last quick tidbit before we say goodbye?
No, I'd just like to thank you, Barbara, for
Oh,
producing,
thank you.
having this show and having us on.
Well, thank you all for being here, and
Thank you
thank
very
you all for tuning in.